Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first board meeting of the year, January 7th, 2025. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Officer Nicholson, if you could lead us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could remain standing for a moment of silence. A lot to pray for today. We lost a member of our Lake Mohegan Fire Department in the beginning of the year, Christopher Johansson. Also a member of our Conservation Board, Minnie Deneen Carey. We lost President James Earl Carter. And also we just passed the one-year anniversary of the passing of Tom Diana. So if we could have a moment of silence as we remember them all. Thank you. Start with introductions to my right.
Good evening, Diana Quast, Town Clerk.
Good evening and Happy New Year, Luciana Howitt, Councilwoman.
Supervisor Ed Lachterman.
Patrick Murphy, Town Council.
Susan Siegel, Councilwoman.
Adam Rodriguez, Town Attorney.
All right. For my report for the town, I just hope everyone had a fantastic holiday, Happy New Year, healthy, and that we are off and running in 2025, and may it be a very healthy, prosperous year for all. We do have one thing coming up for those of you that feel healthy that I'll just mention, the Polar Bear Plunge. I heard Jefferson Village, every condo president had to go and do it, so. Well, the ones for every condo. But the Polar Bear Plunge will be this coming Saturday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at Sparkle Lake. I will be there to cheer you all on as you go in the water.
With hot cocoa.
Yes. I also just want to wish everybody a happy New Year. That's all.
I just hope everybody enjoyed their holidays and Happy New Year's. And I just want to give a quick little shout out to the Elks Club, Rich and Marianne De Silva. They constantly are going out trying to find grants for our community. And they do a phenomenal job. And they got a gratitude grant for the Parks and Recs Department, which basically provides some monetary support for people that need help throughout this for the summer camps. It's strictly for summer camps, and they got $2,500 for them. They got $4,000 for the Beacon grant, and they gave that to Birthright and Peekskill. That's all unwed mothers that need help for their babies, whether it's milk, formula, whatever they need, clothing. It's they're constantly looking for these grants for the community, and it's not just Yorktown, it's everybody, and they do a phenomenal job. So I just wanted to give a little shout out to Rich and Marianne.
Yeah, shout out to Jefferson Village.
Obviously, I wish everybody a happy and a healthy new year. I'd just like to say later in one of the resolutions, the board will adopt a meeting calendar for next year. In advance of that resolution, I just want to express my disappointment that we're not going back to meeting 4 times a month. In the 6 months I've been on the board, plus the many years that I've been sitting on your side of the table, I know that there's a lot of unfinished business to attend to, and 3 meetings a month, 2 regular meetings and a work session. Work session is where the board meets informally and back and forth and airs their concerns, asks questions of whether it's a department head or an outside vendor or an applicant who's requesting something. And sometimes those discussions can take a half an hour. Sometimes they can even take longer, depending upon the issue. And the board needs the time to discuss this. Actually, there were 3 moratoriums passed in 2024, and they're all expiring on April 1st. That's coming up very, very quickly, and this board needs time to discuss these issues. 2 of them actually expired in 2024 and had to be re-voted on because nothing was done in 2024. So I think we need that to discuss that. We have RFPs, requests for proposals, that need to be addressed. We have two important bids the bids were closed the first week in December. We have to decide and discuss those. One is for the long-awaited improvements to the Route 118 Underhill Avenue improvements, and another one deals with a serious issue with the Peekskill sewer system. That dates back to 2019. We have to discuss this and work on that. And I think we also would appreciate the meetings not going on as long as some of them have. All right, we've made a lot of jokes about them. I think it was your birthday, I think, at one of those meetings, because we're cramming too much into meetings. That's another reason why we need that fourth meeting. And I think we have to find, in addition to having the fourth meeting, I think there are ways that we can streamline these meetings so we focus more on town business, and that's one of the concerns that I have. I've heard from a lot of people who said they stopped watching the meetings because they're not talking about very much. Or some people who come to speak at the public hearing and they can't stay when the hearing doesn't start until 10 o'clock at night, and they have to get up in the morning and go to work or take care of their children. So I have two suggestions for streamlining the meetings. But I think I'd like to hear, and I think this board needs to hear from the community, you people who are sitting there at the meetings and who don't want to sit here until 11 o'clock or midnight sometimes, what you think. One of my suggestions is that we focus on town business, and that some of the community events can maybe be dealt with differently. We do have a community calendar on our website, and organizations are more than welcome to list their coming events. Some of those events are also listed on different social media pages, or if you're a member of some organization, you know what events are coming up. And we have bulletin boards in many of the town buildings that could post these events, and that would be a way to streamline it and get down to town business more quickly. And also, our poet laureate, who unfortunately I think is recuperating from an illness, but I just wonder if, whether that's something that focuses on town business. But I would like to hear from the community and I think that the board needs to hear from the community as to what you think, because these meetings are for your benefit and what will help you and make the meetings more informative, more transparent, and not last until midnight. So with that, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Susan. I will say, as a community member, even with all the options of getting things out there, I do appreciate hearing from the other board members of things that may not have made it or might have slipped my attention. And as for the poet laureate, I think that sometimes having a perspective like that, he could do it here or on the agenda, or he could do it at courtesy of the floor, which is his right. But you know what? I think that sometimes, actually, I know that all the time, hearing a different opinion other than the people of the board, whether it's about something centered around the town or within our country or our world, is not a bad thing. So I think the 45 seconds that Mr. McMillan spends on his, at least orating his poems, I'm sure he takes more time to write them, will not make or break any of our meeting times.
Well, I think courtesy of the floor would be an appropriate place for that, and I think we're fortunate in Yorktown that we have this practice of courtesy of the floor. In fact, many years ago, it used to be 2 courtesies of the floor, but I'm not saying we'll go back to that. But I think that gives residents an opportunity to raise their concerns, again, as you say, whatever the issue they want to raise, and then the board can respond. But again, the focus is making the meetings more meaningful to residents and keeping it within a reasonable time frame so that people want to either come here or watch it on video or watch it live stream. Thank you.
All right. Well, our poet laureate isn't here, so that saves a little of the time that we just spent. We will start our presentation. I have James Waterhouse and Paul Vasillo from our water department to talk about our metering. and a couple of changes to the master fee schedule, and also, I'm sorry?
Town code.
Town code, yes. Thank you.
Good evening. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Like to speak with you.
Why don't you lift that mic a little? Yep, there you go.
Does it work?
Don't get yelled at.
All right. Like to speak to you tonight about the moving forward with meter testing for residential and commercial. There's 451 residential that has not changed to the AMR smart meter. So what we propose is to test for accuracy. We have a series of letters that we're discussing sending out. That first one will, hey, you got 15 days to set up an appointment to have your residential meter, which residential meter is a 3/4 or 1-inch meter, tested for accuracy. And there's the second letter will have a $25 surcharge if you do not answer the first. And then the third will have, we're proposing a $100 surcharge if you refuse, and a recurring charge on the water bill. And then we'll start the series of letters the next following year. Accuracy on a residential meter is about, I think, is 98 to 101%. I'd be willing to bet that a good portion of these do not meet that.
So let's, for the public, just expand upon the fact that some people still have mechanical meters versus
Yes.
the electronic meters. Some of them have not changed for various reasons. The purpose of this is to test for accuracy.
Yes.
If the meter is inaccurate, we have demos. I love demos. Although Kenny used to bring in the broken pipe, which was pretty cool. But we have some people that haven't, and the problem is that the mechanical ones over time lose their accuracy.
Slow down.
So for people that do not want to change from that to the electronic, we will test it for them, make sure it is accurate.
Yes.
If it is accurate, they can keep that meter,
And there'll be a yearly,
and every year they'll have to have it inspected.
absolutely.
They pay for the inspection,
Yes.
not us. Then if it is
How much is that
inaccurate,
inspection, Ed?
So it would be $75 for 3/4 and $100 for a 1-inch.
That's all.
yep. Then if the meter is inaccurate, they will have the option of us supplying them with a brand new electronic meter.
Yes.
Or if they prefer the mechanical meter, they could go to a new mechanical meter with an electronic reader head. So we still take the measurements the same way without having to individually go and read meters.
Right.
And that would then again have to be tested annually
Yes.
to make sure that it's accurate.
Yes. So the option would be for the resident to decide, right? So it would be at our cost. So the pricing for this is the positive displacement, the mechanical meter. The cost for a 3/4 would be $234. That would be the cost to the resident. And if they decide not to pay for this, they would get this one installed for free by us. This would be installed by us as well. Obviously 1-inch is 301, so it's a little higher, but the option is there if they choose so, that they would prefer this type of meter.
So just to go back, the first thing is to reach out to the residents that have
Yes.
not replied.
Yes.
And then, obviously, we encourage everyone to respond or help your neighbors respond. Once they respond and they decide, listen, I don't want to go that way, I want to go this way,
Right.
you'll explain to them.
Absolutely.
That's how it's going to go. So right now,
Absolutely.
the first initiation is to send out that
Get those-
tiered the outreach.
Yes,
Okay.
right.
So I understand. And then if they opt to this option, then they'll have to go on that maintenance plan, understand how much it's going to cost and how it
Yes.
works, as opposed to the other one.
Right. So there's no testing charge, yearly testing charge for these meters.
No.
So it would just be the
Reading.
positive displacement.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, because we've been dealing with this for almost a year now, of these people who have not allowed the installers to come in to put in the smart meters. Multiple letters have gone out to them, and that's been the recurring issue. If now you're going to send them a letter now and they're not going to let you in one more time, okay? so you can test their mechanical meter. Then they will start getting these notices, and the surcharge will go on their water
The
bills.
water bill, yes.
And they'll
So-
certainly respond to that, I'm sure.
Well, I think when they know that the first charge is, the first letter is no charge, and then the second letter is
A minimal charge.
a minimal charge, and then the third letter. But the water department, we have to rely on your staff to send those second and third letters out very
Yes.
quickly after no response. Is it like 15 days?
15
days.
days.
15 days. So we've got to finally deal with this, because the money that's being lost by these inaccurate meters is something that every other water customer is paying for
Excuse
in
me,
their bill.
Supervisor, is it possible to put it on Nixle?
I'm sorry, say that again?
I'm just asking the supervisor if it's possible to put it on Nixle.
I don't-
Like, to look out for these letters
I
if you
don't,
haven't done it.
it's such a small sampling of people. I don't think it's appropriate, because it'll create more questions out there than not.
Okay, I'm just saying, not everyone likes
Yeah.
looking at their mail.
Well, they do look at their bills, though. So
That's true,
okay.
the bill is definitely.
And I know that there have been some instances, and you know, I hesitate to use the term refuse to let us in, because I know there have been people that might be renting that aren't getting the letters.
Right.
There are people that think the letters are a scam because they didn't come from us
Yeah, they don't know what that is. yeah.
originally. So, you know, there are a lot of different things that I would be, you know, very cognizant of how we view it and look at it. There are some people that understand it completely, though, and just don't want the electronic meters because they feel that it's a way of monitoring them. So,
Paul, one quick question.
Yes.
If you got into the house to change the new manual meter,
The smart meter,
no,
this one.
why wouldn't they put the electronic one on? You know what I mean? Like
That
the
would
hard
make
part is
sense.
getting into the house.
Right.
Because
so-
some maybe they don't want to do it because they think that they're being spied on or something.
and it's,
Is it
How many
okay?
times they get flushed?
right, so to touch on what she just said, that is some of the comments we hear, that we can listen. That's not true. We can't listen.
Every flush.
And it actually, it works out in the residents' favor, because we're able to, even with the portal, there's a portal that the residents can download that they can track their usage.
Gotcha.
If there's a question with the bill, you know, they can call us and we can say, hey, we noticed usage overnight, usually, which means a leaky toilet.
Yep.
You know, and that adds up, as much as, you know, people kind of
But when
don't.
it comes to confidentiality, I get it. There is a real concern about it.
I get it.
And I also get it. I mean, even in my line of work, where I don't like talking about my husband unless my phones are really far away, because they will send him messages. So I'm just saying there is a thing where some people are totally against it.
If I may interject to that point, so the way that our billing is structured, we bill in 10-gallon increments. So you
Come
can,
closer to the mic, just so you don't get yelled at.
you can change the dials on these meters. So you can read in a tenth of a gallon, a hundredth of a gallon, single gallon, 1,000-gallon. We ask these meters to read in 10-gallon increments,
Because that's how you bill.
and the average toilet flush is about 1.5 per flush. So it wouldn't actually tell us if people were flushing their toilets. Just to put that out there, because I have received these phone calls.
Yeah, and it's a real thing.
and it's a sincere question, you know. So it just to put that out there, the ability does exist. We certainly do not have that set that
You
way.
mean you don't have an employee counting how many times someone flushes their toilet?
I'm glad, because the older I get, the later the more often my flushing during the middle of the night. I don't want you
Real
spying
thing.
on me, Paul.
Paul, I have just a question, not to put you and your staff on the spot, but if the board adopts these changes in the master fee schedule tonight, because we can do that by resolution, how soon can those letters go out to the 460 people?
I don't think they can, Susan, because then that's what I was trying to explain. The letters are actually part of the law. So we have to change the law in order to put that in.
No. You've been sending out letters.
Now, we're now changing our town code
Because of the number.
on how your meters have to be monitored, have to be tested. So it's a change in the town code. So we can't just say we're going to do it by resolution. It has to be an open meeting. It has to be a public hearing. And we have to make sure there's public comment on it.
This would
Correct,
only be
Adam?
for the
Yeah,
residents.
we're modifying the town code, and then we need a public hearing.
This would only be then for the residential. We could start the commercial.
Well, commercials being changed too, town code. We're going from every 3 years to every year.
I thought the changes were done on the town code back in 2020 to require the testing.
Every 3 years.
Wasn't that done in 2020? I think the town changed the commercial code.
Right now, town code reads that commercial meters are tested every 3 years.
But that's, I think, the wrong question. The issue is whether we're making changes to residential and commercial via the amendments that the department is proposing, which are before the board. And the answer to that is yes.
Yes, because of the charges and whatnot.
No, I thought that the code was changed for the commercial meters.
There are several changes, all of which have to go out for public hearing.
All right, when can we have the local law ready so we can refer it out?
No, you have it.
It was in the package.
The local law deals with water rates,
Yes.
and then it deals with two additional charges, one for a meter rental fee and one for capital projects fee.
Right.
The master fee schedule as to what the charges are going to be for sending out these 3 letters is a master fee issue. What
We're
did-
going to add the following to 280-14 notices. Notice of noncompliance meter testing, and it goes into that. Then amend 280-15 service connections and meters. And add the following to 280-18 for meter tests. This was all part of,
That package.
She has it.
I have the earlier version.
Wasn't it the original?
so what else did we have, Paul?
Basically, it was commercial as well, that we will offer, the town will offer to go test commercial meters at the cost of $100 per inch. And that also, like I just explained, that we are looking to change town code from every 3 years to every year. This way we can keep on top of these meters to make sure they are running accurate.
Right, and just for the record, the reasons that we weren't able to keep up on the 3-year schedule, but can do a 1-year now, when COVID hit, the companies that do this testing were basically like, yeah, we don't want to come up there. So the people who were reaching out to get the testing were being told, sorry, not going to happen. So I give kudos to our water department because they found the equipment to test, found the company to train them for testing,
And now we're
and
doing it in-house.
now it'll be an in-house project. The cost will still be borne by the commercial landlords, as well as actually the homeowners when we have to do testing for
Right.
that, and not cost the taxpayer, but instead be basically a revenue generator for the town to cover these costs. So kudos to you and your team, and getting involved there and making sure that sort of thinking outside the box.
And being proactive,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and getting certified.
Are we ready then to refer this out and schedule a public hearing?
Need what, 4 weeks?
I need to have the law sent to me.
You have it.
Was there any modifications since that point in time?
Nope.
And we can refer it out.
And what date can we schedule the public hearing?
It all depends on referring it out and when we get information from other agencies back.
Let's say we schedule it the first meeting in February.
That's a possibility.
Pending.
But I can't do that until we get the information back, because when you get information from agencies, Susan, sometimes they want changes to this, so that will change the law. I'm not gonna sit here and say, okay, on February 4th, we're ready to go out.
Well-
I just don't know that that will happen.
Well, I know that we don't have a meeting on the 11th because of the special election for county executive. And we added one to the end of the month.
25th, yeah.
So that should be adequate time, February 25?
Yeah, I would think that would be, most boards meet once a month, so we should catch that, but, February 4th might be low.
I think February 4th would be at this point. So let's look at the
That will be scheduled for February 25th.
25th.
Excuse me?
25th would be a work session.
Regular town board meeting.
4th,
February
the
18th.
11th is off.
Yes, so the 18th would be.
The 18th,
You're the third week.
you,
of February.
so you wouldn't switch that to the work session because we missed the week?
February
Okay,
18th.
that's
February
fine.
18th meeting, we will have a schedule so we can get this enacted into law after many, many, many months.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you,
We're
Jim,
not,
for
we're not,
your-
we're not done yet, Susan. Thank you.
All right.
All right, so if we
Roll
could, not a roll call, just to, a vote to move,
To refer out and
yeah, vote to refer out and set public hearing. Motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so we have a couple more things on there too, Paul?
And thank you for all your hard work on that.
Excuse me?
I said thank you for your hard work on that.
Oh, you're welcome. Are we talking about rates?
Yes.
Okay. Was proposing wasn't prepared for this one. I thought we were just doing the meters. But we were proposing I might need that.
You need these?
No,
Got the face.
where we at? Well, just briefly, we were proposing a 75-cent increase in the water rates. What Joint Waterworks is raising their rates to us. Like I said, I don't remember the exact percentage. Like I said, I wasn't prepared for the rate conversation.
Sorry.
And we are also proposing a meter rental fee of $5. This way, that'll cover the cost of the metering, the towers, the batteries, the maintenance of the metering system. And we were looking into the possibility of a 20-cent per thousand capital project charge.
So explain that to the public so they understand a little better.
So the money that would be generated through that would go to water tank replacement, relining of water main, the extension of water main, the replacement of water main, the infrastructure, hydrants, valves,
And that's based on 20 cents per 1,000 gallons of
1,000
water.
gallons.
What does the average homeowner use?
So the average homeowner, I think that we figured out per year, for the average homeowner, it was like $60-something a year it would cost the average homeowner.
And then that money would in turn go to the infrastructure
Yes,
of the not only the tanks, but the pipes and the
absolutely.
Hydrants
Hydrants
and
and
everything
vaults and the whole infrastructure of our system. The meter rental fee, that would be kept in a separate line strictly for the maintenance of the metering system, the towers, the batteries, like I said. This way.
and it's based on usage, so that makes it fair around the board.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Just if you could throw out, we're doing tank painting on one tank, correct?
Currently, yes.
And what is the cost of the painting of that tank, just on the external, I believe?
The external price was, oh my God, was,
Ballpark.
I'm trying to remember, it was like 700,000.
That's
Like 785,
Yeah,
I
it
think.
was
So
7.
closer to 8. If
So,
not-
but we have a tank that needs to be replaced, that's 1.2 million.
correct. How many tanks do we have in town?
6.
6 tanks. So if we look at replacement of all those tanks on an average of 1.2, you're looking at 7.2 million.
And
Just
the
to-
1.2 is a smaller tank.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, because they can go up to $2-3 million, right?
That's
yeah,
today's-
well,
today's
the
dollars
average
also.
for the 6 price.
excuse me?
No. I'm just saying for those sizes, they're not tremendous. The ones that are bigger than the tiny one. This is the
Oh,
smallest.
yeah.
you have.
It's not the tank that needs to be replaced is not the smallest. It's a smaller tank. It's not the
Okay.
smallest. That 1.2 million included the cost of them taking the steel, so they deducted that from the cost of the tank.
Wow.
But it's still 1.2 million to replace that tank. There's been a couple leaks already in that tank that we've had patched. The tanks are from the 60s. One of them is from 30s. I think Mohegan is from the 30s. It's a
Probably in the
riveted
best
tank.
condition because they knew how to make stuff back then.
Yeah, still standing.
All right.
Paul, it would seem to me that by putting in that capital fee on a gallon usage, we're increasing the revenue for there, and that would take the pressure off the need to increase the water district tax. So it's because we would need less revenue, and that would possibly postpone any increase, any amount of an increase in the water district tax because we're getting more revenue from
Right.
the usage. So it's one way or the other, the taxpayer has to pay to maintain this system because we all expect, well, most homeowners expect the water to run when they turn the tap
Yes.
on. all right? And they need clean, safe water and reliable supply. So this is an essential service that you have to
Oh,
pay for.
absolutely, absolutely.
It goes up to 75.
So and there's some work that needs to be done.
Yeah, it's good.
Paul, what's the current rate of our water for the main Yorktown district?
It's $7.15 per thousand.
So
So
this
we're
will be-
raising it to $7.90 per thousand.
Where does that fit in the scheme of
I
our
want to
surrounding?
say we fall third, we're like third lowest. So I think Cortland's ahead, Ossing's ahead of us. Yeah, so when you
West
look
is
at
the
that,
Jordan,
we
West
are
is the Jordan
the
water.
third highest, third lowest, however you want to look at it.
Okay. And explain, you mentioned Northern Westchester Joint Waterworks will be increasing our rate.
Their rate to us.
Right, so explain how we pay for that and, you know, what,
Right, so we purchase water from Northern Westchester Joint Waterworks, who purchase it from the city.
who gets it from us.
Right. So they're raising their rates to us.
And they're actually getting a rate increase from New York City,
Right.
which they've gotten every year. And we have not kept up with that rate increase. So that's something that unfortunately, the way that the systems are set up, that we buy our water from New York because they actually own, I guess, our aqueducts and reservoirs.
Right.
We end up having to buy our water from them, and they have no problem increasing our tax on that, or our rate on that. All right. Were there any, I think there were a couple of other changes you wanted to make on the rate schedule?
The
The hookups, disconnects?
we want to raise, right now, for us to review set of backflow plans, we charge $110. We wanted to raise that to $125.
So explain the backflow plans.
Well, the backflow, an engineer will send us plans for review. Backflow, what backflow does is prevent cross-contamination, right? For commercial businesses and such, even irrigation.
Pools.
So, right, so when we have a water main break, sometimes we'll drain a house right down. And if there's a hose in a bucket of chemical, we'll suck that bucket of chemical right through that garden hose and into our system. So the backflow prevents all of that from happening. So what we do is we review plans, which we then submit to the health department for their review for these engineers and these companies that want to open businesses here in town.
Right. And from the commercial end, I could say, especially from the restaurant and soda systems, they found this to be a problem because if you get backflow into there, you end up with copper in your sodas and your beverages, and copper poisoning in a restaurant is not a very pretty sight. So I have seen it back in the day, so it's something that's very important. All right, so what about your, you had something on connection charges?
Tap fees,
Yes,
tap
tap
fees was originally $1,200 a tap.
And that's a new house coming online?
Right, for 3/4 1 inch, it would be a new install. It was lowered to $750. I don't know why it was lowered, but we want to bring it back up to $1,200.
And that is actually our team going out, making sure everything's hooked up properly?
Yeah, that includes the install of the meter, the inspection of the line, the review of the paperwork. That includes everything.
So are
That-
those
that
fees
fee.
part of the law?
That's part of
Those
Master
fees
fees.
are master fee
Master
schedule.
fee.
So
Can we-
if we agree on them, I'll have them on for a resolution next week to pass. But I'm not going to do it without the board hearing them and seeing if there's any comment.
And then there was the water usage permit. So when a contractor needs a hydrant, a meter on a hydrant, right now we're charging $100. We want to raise that to $250.
Okay, and that's not only contractors, I know special events like at the mall.
Right, or
Have that.
San Gennaro when they
And
need
that's a bit
it.
of work, so.
So, yeah, it's
Okay,
these fees have been in place like this for quite a few years.
right, and they haven't kept up with our labor increases, I know. So, okay, was there anything else? Out of district staying the same at the 10,000 or?
Yes, out of district staying the same as far as the 10,000
for the tap fee?
tap fee. That's staying the same.
Okay. All right. Was there anything else? I don't,
Here, I'll give, no, I don't think so. No, I think that was it.
okay.
Yes, the commercial testing fees we went over, the letters we went over. Yep, that was it.
Very good. Anyone have any questions?
I have one little comment, Paul. I've seen you guys doing work. You guys do a phenomenal job, and the way you guys are able to, if there's a main break, a water break, how you guys go down 6 feet in a 4x4 foot area and fix it. You guys do a great job. That's why I
Thank
just
you.
want to commend you guys.
Thank you very much. It's a good group.
It is.
But you don't hear good stuff usually. So,
Oh, it's an inconvenience for a lot of people.
no, I know that, but you guys do a good job.
And Paul, could you, because every so often we get comments, oh my God, why don't you fix all the pipes? Why do we have breaks? Can you sort of explain a little bit about the infrastructure of the system?
So,
And how old?
I mean, the infrastructure, I don't want to say I laugh at the infrastructure comments, right? So, some of our pipes are old. Some of the oldest pipes, like Sagamore, is from 1932. That pipe, I've never been on a break on Sagamore. So it's recently it's been the newer pipe that's been breaking. And I don't know why. I wish I knew, because then I could prevent it.
Not unless you go back in time to when it's produced, because that's what the problems
Right.
are. It's impurities in the production.
Right, the spinning of the pipe, and but when it does get cold, casket's brittle, which creates these breaks. The shifting of the ground creates breaks. We don't cause them. I know people like to blame us. It's not our fault. If fire department, when they're putting out a fire, sometimes that's stress on the pipe.
Yeah, the
it just
pressure.
causes it to break. It's not their fault. It's just the pipe is, that may be a weak spot in that length of pipe.
And we have a few different types of pipe in the
Yes.
ground, so
We have ductile iron, cast iron, and transite.
So what happens when you have to put some sort of nipple to get them together?
We have
Are you going up and down sometimes in size?
No.
You
So-
have to do comparable?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So size 8-inch stays with 8-inch, and so on and so on.
and the one that we do replace as it breaks is and with a different type is the transite, correct?
Excuse me?
Transite, the transite piping we try to change into ductile, is it?
We're
Right
moving
now,
away
we're in
from
the
it.
process of removing transite. It's not a requirement right now by the health department, but it will be.
That's the one that corrodes, correctly?
It's
Is that the one that corrodes too much on the inside, like it starts to peel itself?
No. It's kind of like a asbestos cement pipe. It's got
Oh.
it's cement pipe with asbestos fibers. And what happens is they want us to remove all this pipe, but we have about 40 miles in this town. So
And we did do a project under Tommy on Broad Street.
did a
correct?
few, right? We did Broad Street.
Remember that was twice.
Well, how much was Broad Street? How big of a distance and how much did it cost?
It was about 800 feet, and it was about $80,000.
So for 800 feet, and we have 40 miles.
Yeah, we came up with a cost estimate, and it was roughly about $32 million to replace the 40 miles of pipe.
And that's without the millings, the compact, the gravel, the whole project, right?
Yeah,
That's all the other good stuff.
right.
after,
I think there was just contractor pipe, what it cost per foot.
Just for the pipe.
All right, so I just wanted to put it out there because I know there are a lot of people that say, well, oh my God, why don't you just tear it all up and replace it?
Right. So the health department really, they hold us to a strict standard when it comes to transite pipe. We're required to leave it off for sampling to make sure that the samples come back good. We've never had a problem with our sampling when on a transite water main break. We hand out cases of water, buckets of water for the time being, because like I said, they do not want that water turned on until those samples come back.
Right.
So in some of these instances, we have to go to New York City to have these samples run so we can get them back in a timely manner. So
Very good. And I know I'm in on all the emails. I know how detailed they are, and it's some great work. So, you know, kudos to you, your team,
Thank you.
and James, great job tonight, throwing all that in there. I think I'm good. Any other?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
We'll see you in
Thank-
February.
Can I ask a question?
No,
Now, you could ask something at courtesy of the floor to the board, but this is a presentation to the board. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kratz. If you could call the water department in the morning,
I know,
but this is, thank you.
it's right time to.
We would open the floor for public comment now.
And you could open the public comment.
Have a good night, guys. Thank you.
All right, I'll call you, Sure. It's about prion infection, so you will know, it's this, prion infection.
We're open for courtesy of the floor, if anyone has any comments.
I think it's just an agenda.
Good evening, members of the board. Happy, healthy New Year to everyone.
Gentlemen, if you could take it out to the hallway. Thank you. Go on, Joanne.
Okay. Joanne Silic, Yorktown Heights.
Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you. This past Sunday, January 5th, marked a year of the passing of our beloved supervisor, Tom Deanna. 2 years ago, almost to the day, January 10th, 2023, I stood here congratulating him on being appointed acting supervisor. I'd like to repeat some of what I said at that time because I think it is relevant now. Tom, having successfully served on the town board, you are very experienced as to the needs of Yorktown. You have shown yourself to be a hard worker and a man true to your unwavering values that I always respect enormously. With your dedication, energy, and capabilities, I am confident that with you at the helm, Yorktown has a bright future ahead. He was a man true to his convictions, earning bipartisan respect. He left us a legacy showing his love for his town. Tom will always be remembered personally as a man who deeply loved his family, and professionally, not as a politician, but a man who loved serving the people of Yorktown. Rest in peace, dear Tom. The Okie from Shrub Okie. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you, Joanne.
I was. Hi, good evening, Happy New Year. Jan Mirchandani, Yorktown Heights. I just want to very briefly, Diana will probably kill me, comment on Susan's point earlier about, the timing of the meetings. I actually have to run out tonight because I have to go pick up my daughter from the train station. So I get it. And my kids are older. My kids are grown. A lot of people can't stay for the meetings. So, every effort that we make to keep them efficient would be greatly appreciated. One thing that I would suggest is maybe some of the community calendar stuff, we can have them showing on the screen while you guys are in executive session. And that, it might shave a few minutes, but, around 11 o'clock, those minutes matter. Anywho, so I just wanted to, we were talking at the last meeting last year about the 485B law, and it kind of got me thinking just because, I'm curious by nature. I did a little bit of research into what some of the other municipalities around us do. Was very interested in some of the results. We are virtually the only town in the surrounding areas that has our own 485B tax law. I really was shocked by that. Cortland has only an exemption, and I'm quoting, exempt current and former nuclear power electric generating facilities from taxation special ad valorem levies. Clearly, we don't need that. Somers reduces it to 1/1000th of 1%. Carmel eliminates it entirely. Ossining reduces it to 0. Croton zeroes it out. Mount Kisco zeroes it out. Peekskill and Putnam Valley only allow exemptions for Cold War vets. I cannot explain it. I don't know why that is, but those are the only two exemptions that they allow for 485B laws. I can't even explain it in terms of the time. The initial law was enacted in 1976, and that Putnam Valley, rather, enacted their law in 2008. I cannot explain that, why they would make that particular exemption, but I thought that was interesting. So using the logic that we've talked about at previous board meetings, if we have 485B, we should be much more attractive than some of our neighbors. And I know, Ed, you had mentioned that, we might be looking at this in the first quarter this year. I think we really need to do a comparative analysis in terms of our development that we're seeing here, the dollars that we are not seeing coming in terms of revenue, and whether this 485B, considering we're the only one that have it, whether it really is doing what we want it to be doing. So, anyway, I thought I'd share. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Can I?
Yeah.
Okay, Gregory Kravtsov. I would like to address from my previous presentation when these pictures were given to you. Unfortunately, 3 minutes is too short to explain what it's all about. I have a patent which called space-time matrix technology, which can show the structure of preon, and a preon shown here in a regular picture. Columbia University now studies with the help of my technology. This is how the same preon shown on my technology. It studies actually how to identify the source of where preon came from. And preon, as you might know, is a source of mad cow disease, and lately it was acknowledged that it's a infection caused, which is a cause of Parkinson, Lewy body dementia, and Alzheimer disease. They're all caused essentially by the same pathogen. Up to now, or recently, it was considered not to be infective. However, with the mad cow research, it is proven to be infective. Why do I bring all this? Is because we are trying to establish a research facility in a Trump Park. The Trump Park, as you know, was wrongfully denied when Trump applied for his golf course permit. It was wrongfully denied, and then when he had to donate the property to the state of New York, Governor Pataki explicitly promised him to develop it, and that was a condition of his donation. However, after 27 or 25 years passed, it was not developed, and this, I made a research, legal research, this actually constitutes a breach of his transfer. So there are legal precedents where he can claim the property back. I don't know if he wants to, it doesn't matter. Because it was a mistake was made twice. First, it was a wrong geodesic research into groundwater, on which grounds he was denied the permit to build a golf course and a big development around it, which would actually bring our taxes down significantly. So now, when he's a president and he's promising to have Department of Justice address grievances from his past tenure, we want to propose going back to his
Time is up, Mr. Kravtsov.
proposition of going to the retracting his donation and having research facility, Columbia University pre-owned research facility.
Thank you, Mr.
on
Kratzoff.
that.
Time is up.
Thanks.
I will address it if you're still in the room later.
My medical condition prevents me sitting. I will hear it on your
Okay, very good.
recording. Eventually, I'm promising quarter saving on it. In other words, 25% tax
Mr.
reduction.
Kratzoff, thank you.
Just for people to understand what's at stake.
Okay, Mr. Kopstein? Thank you.
25% tax reduction. It's very important, more important than 3 minutes, sir. 25% tax reduction.
Thank you, Mr. Kratzoff.
It's not a laughing matter.
Good evening, Jay Kopstein. At the Planning Board meeting of December 23rd, 2024, counsel for the developer of Underhill Farms again addressed the Planning Board and requested another revision to the approved site plan and a request to subdivide the property. Counsel for the developer initially stated to the Planning Board several times that the town board had approved the necessary easements. Councilmember Siegel visibly objected to the statement about the town board's approval, as did Councilmember Esposito. Counsel for the developer then modified his statement that the town board had approved the necessary easements to, he had been working with the town attorney and the necessary easements had been approved by the town attorney and were ready for recording and filing and awaiting the signature of the supervisor. Can the supervisor sign these easements without the concurrence of the town board in a recorded vote? Since this development is within the overlay district, does the town board have oversight? Do these developer requested changes require a town board public hearing and vote before the planning board can consider them? These changes will impact the ambiance of the public areas in that the wooden footbridge is now being deleted and will be replaced by a culvert. Further, 4 previously approved housing units, which were removed, are now being reinstituted and 9 parking spaces are being relocated. The requested subdivision would have a significant impact on public access portion of this private property development. Who will maintain the public area and access? I know the developer said the homeowners association will. But what if they do not? Will the town sue the homeowners association and risk angering 200 or maybe 300 voters? The town cannot enter upon public property to do maintenance unless a public nuisance is declared. Should the town board request the planning board reconsider the whole public access issue and impose recreation fees instead? These recreation fees, if instituted, could exceed $1 million, a sum that the Parks and Recreation could certainly use. During the public hearings on the Underhill Farms development, I spoke in favor of this development. Knowing what I knew now, I would not have supported this development, and in my opinion, other people would not have as well. It's time for the town board to say no, and it's time for the town board to ask the planning board to reconsider the recreation fee determination and say no to the subdivision and site plan changes.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Kopstein.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Kopstein.
Thank you.
Good evening. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I'm Mary Jane Killian, Yorktown Heights. I usually come to talk about
Climate,
yes.
energy savings.
And I will be back with that, but this is a new year, and for me, a new topic. I want to talk tonight about the connection between having to raise our taxes and the declining value of commercial real estate in Yorktown and everywhere. The crux of the matter is that this decline directly reduces the amount of property tax that the town receives from commercial real estate. Let me give you an example. 35 years ago, when we were looking for houses in Yorktown, we went to the JV Mall. It was vibrant, it was busy, it had a range of stores, it had a movie theater, Gap and Gap Kids, which seemed like our kids were single-handedly supporting. So it was part of the decision to buy here, to have the mall. And when our daughter was old enough, it was a big deal for her to hang out there with her friends for hours. A decade later, what started to happen was the unmalling of America. A few years ago, I read a great article which tracks what happened. A large part of the reason was the start of online shopping. In fact, this Christmas, I went to a mall once. Every day from Thanksgiving on, there was a package or two in my porch from Amazon or somebody else. And like everyone, also we stream movies instead of going out to see them. And this happened across the country in cities and towns. It was the future of shopping and other things. The JV Mall did a lot of what it was supposed to do to keep relevant. More space, updating its look, bringing in Dick's. But did any of that result in an increase in what Yorktown got in property taxes? No, because the value of retail space is still declining rapidly. I could go on, but we know what happened. The tax certiorari judgment of last year determined that the town had to pay back the owners of the JV Mall for taxes that they had originally paid going back to 2020. This was a major hit to future revenue and an increase in expenses for the town of close to $1 million. So while what's happening with the mall and other commercial real estate was beyond Yorktown and other towns' control, our response to what has happened is definitely not. The real point is, what should we do and what should other towns and our town do in response? We need a new model of development. So what should Yorktown do? That's a discussion for future evenings. Adding and refurbishing existing space is not increasing our tax base, period. I'll be back for another evening.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy
Hello.
New Year, everyone. I would be in favor of streamlining meetings and adding an extra meeting, and I believe we were here to 2 o'clock at one
2:30.
point. What's that?
2:30.
Oh, when we were at the
Gymnasium.
gymnasium. All right, so a major, major cause of your recent tax increase is the across-the-board decline in the value of commercial real estate. Example, colleges offering online courses. There's no need to rent classroom space or furniture, no utility costs, no need to plow the parking lot when it snows. We took a major hit in 2021 with the loss of Mercy College at the office park just across the Taconic from Lowe's. This decline in commercial assessed value is an ongoing tax disaster which must be studied and addressed. And it's exacerbated by the courts having the power to order us to refund tax money paid years ago. Suggest that you Google this. When did Lowe's open in Yorktown Heights? You'll find an April 2019 article by Brian Marshauser. I probably said that wrong.
Marchhauser. Yeah.
Marshauser. And I quote, 9 years, 2 months, 9 days after the first meeting, Lowe's celebrated its grand opening in Yorktown Heights on Thursday, April 4th. So this article lays out in great detail how Breslin invested and made a commitment to that property years before the 485B tax break was even considered. Indeed, BJ's and Staples did the same without a tax break. We can't give developers tax breaks to do something they plan to do anyway, and where we can project, and we need to do our homework on this, that no tax break is needed. Residential taxpayers have paid $1 million in taxes that the commercial owner should have paid for development in this area of town. That's the opposite of what our development policy is supposed to do. The law allows us not to offer tax breaks in this area of town, an option we should have taken years ago, and hopefully we'll start to discuss at the next meeting. The explanation that the tax break only delays the increase only works if the tax base is increasing, it's decreasing.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, so let me add my Happy New Year's to everybody else's. I want to bring up two things that you promised.
Mark, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah, Mark Lieberman, Yorktown Heights. So two things that you had promised me that I want to remind you of. At the September 3rd meeting last year, I brought up the Sensory Garden project and the fact that the group that I was chairing raised $800 for a bench. And you had said at that meeting that there would be a plan in the next few weeks and you would share the plan with me. So if there's a plan, please share it with me. If there's not a plan, please let me know that there's no plan. Perhaps it's time to refund the $800 if there's never going to be a bench with our tag on it. The second item that you promised it was at the budget hearing on December 3rd, and I had asked how much money would we have received in taxes if we did not have the 485B since its inception, and you said you would get that to me. I know the holidays came about, so if you'd give me an idea of when you'll give that to me, that would be great. And I didn't plan on talking about what Susan brought up at the beginning of the meeting, but I know it's been discussed before, having a fourth meeting, staying late, etc. I get pretty tired around 11, 12 o'clock. But I liked what Patrick had to say at that meeting, and so I think it would be good if you made a list of, and Susan rattled off a list, so if you go to the list of things that you have to do, and you put some target dates down, you might be able to say, well, we might need an extra meeting in February, but we don't need one in March. So I think that's a good compromise, and I think you guys should spend 15 minutes and work that out.
Well, we sort of have that written in already, but thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
Good evening, Sarah Wilson, Yorktown Heights. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's.
Good evening, Supervisor Lachterman, members of the town board. I've just got two upcoming events to mention. First, our 24th Yorktown Repair Cafe is going to be held a week earlier than usual this month on Saturday, January 18th, so a week from this Saturday, at Grace Lutheran Church at the corner of Curry and Gomer Streets. In addition to all the usual free repairs that we do, we're going to have a volunteer who will do free knife and scissor sharpening.
Ooh.
So that's, we want to get the word out about that because we all have dull items. And also we have two volunteers who specialize in computer and technology.
Oh,
so
great.
Bring your questions, bring your gadgets, and those two guys are happy to help. Secondly, we have another holiday coming up on the heels of our other holidays, and that's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, here, which we celebrate here in Yorktown and, of course, across the country. We're all familiar with Dr. King's powerful I Have a Dream speech. But tonight, I just want to invite you and our residents to observe that holiday locally by learning more about Dr. King and his writings, by attending our third annual Beyond the Dream MLK Day event here in Yorktown. It's sponsored by Yorktown for Justice and Ray Samity of Northern Westchester and Putnam, and it will again be held Monday, January 20th, also at Grace Lutheran Church, between 1 and 3. Our previous year's events have been well attended, drawing people from neighboring communities for engaging in lively discussions about several of Dr. King's lesser-known speeches and sermons, along with some music and, of course, refreshments. Have to have refreshments at all of our events. In last year's proclamation recognizing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day here in Yorktown, which was read by Councilman Esposito, the town board encouraged our residents to learn more about, quote, this American hero and tireless social activist who called upon our nation to ensure equal justice under the law and to uphold our founding principles. Our Beyond the Dream event here in Yorktown is a great way to do that. Thank you.
Sarah, before you go, where is that? So everybody knows.
At Grace Lutheran Church, which
Also?
is
Okay.
3830 Gomer Street at the corner of Curry and Gomer Streets, right off of Route 6.
So both of them are going to be on the 18th?
18th is the Repair Cafe. The 20th is the MLK Day event.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Dan Strauss,
Hi, Dan.
58-year resident. Kudos to Joanne. That was a very fitting tribute that you made. Jay Kopstein also made a very fitting statement about the Underhill Farm project for 3 minutes. I was never in favor of it. We shouldn't have to pay anything for the road improvements. I have a feeling that building is going to go. The other day, someone said to me, that's terrific senior housing. It's not senior housing. People still think it's senior housing. And then I said, it's going to be over $1 million. What? Then today, someone said, I understand the senior center is moving from the YCCC building over there. I said, what? People have no idea what's going on. I know that I'll get a response. That thing should never have happened. That's the biggest hoax perpetrated on the people of Yorktown that I've seen in all the years that I've lived here. And it's probably a bigger hoax to me because I've been following stuff for the last 10 years. There are people who are going to live there, fine. And are they going to walk here? Walkability, that was never an issue. That was just a hoax. No one cares whether the town's walkable. The overlay district was put in to make that project work. And it was put in for that, into the Lake Osceola for the same purpose because the same developer has property there. That's the only reason no one has used the overlay district for anything other than the hotel, which to me was another hoax. I believe that was never going to be built. But it was put in just to take away as a diversion. And I believe also in Yorktown Green, the multi-use, I used the wrong term, mixed use, was never going to happen. That was another hoax. So that, I absolutely applaud Jay for that very good statement for 3 minutes. I'm down to 12 seconds, and I'm just going to go to ATVs. They caught a guy up in Carmel and got his mom using a drone, and we never talked about that here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Charlie O'Neill, Yorktown resident.
Hi, Charlie.
I was concerned because when Michael Grace was talking about his development at Osceola, he said there's, after heavy rains, there's fecal matter that sits up on the shore of the place. The lake is condemned because it has C. diff in it, and I'm wondering, what are we doing about that? Because it flows from Osceola into Jefferson Village. Then it goes around the back of the mall, and it goes under Route 6. It goes into Shrub Oaks, the same stream. Then it goes all the way down to 6 and 202, by Story Street, where it ends up down there by, and then it goes under 202-6, and it goes behind the McDonald's, and that was in the flood. It took out that bridge, and so this stream that got fecal matter in it, and I don't understand how come the town hasn't approached this, because now that little stream that goes down, kids, I'm sure, in the backyard of somebody's house are playing in it. And we don't care that that this contaminated water is running all the way through Yorktown, it seems to me. It probably ends up in the reservoir or in the Hudson River. It's got to end up in one of the two of them. And I just don't understand where the town is going with this. Now, Michael Gray said he was going to put in this beautiful sewer system, but that's not going to get rid of what's there, because unless the people spend the $20,000 or $30,000 to get hooked up to it, it's not going to do any good. So we're still going to have this problem with contaminated water running all over Westchester. I mean, well, up here in Yorktown at least. I just don't understand why the town for 20 years have done nothing about this. That was a beautiful lake back in the old days. You used to come with your kids. Now you can't do anything in the lake. I don't understand what's going on with that. But again, I don't think the sewer system that Michael Grace is saying, oh, this is the end of the world, we're going to put a beautiful sewer system in, it's going to work unless the people buy into it. And I don't know about you guys, but $20,000 out of my pocket would really hurt to do that. I'm not going to pay it because I live in Jefferson Village, but the poor people that are down there, I'm sure most of them are just living from hand to mouth like the rest of us. That's my comment.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Any other comments for courtesy of the floor? A motion to close courtesy of the floor?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me one second. All right, so hit a few things. Joanne, I hate the beginning of the year. I lost my mom. We lost Ken Scroy. We lost Tommy. Tommy hit pretty hard on Sunday. I was going through some pictures, just getting back from vacation and going through some things, and came across some old photos. I know, and thank you for a beautiful tribute and remembering it. It hit us all as a town, and I think you encapsulated that very, very well. Thank you. I'll back through a few things real quick. Jan, great idea for the community calendar on the screen during so we'll see what we could do about that. I know when the 485B law was set in, there was a panel put together that looked at the different surrounding communities. So we'll go back to that and maybe set up another panel to get there. We've been trying to figure the way to address it in the best way, but it was pointed out today that commercial property is not as valuable as it was, and there need to be some incentives to get there and have things done. Otherwise, there's a big difference in having an incentive to increase, improve, and make it happen than just have them pack up their bags and take off. But we're not sitting on the sideline. There are possibly some things happening with some of our commercial properties that will be extremely good for them. Some that are some that are retail, some that are more service-based, and that's, it's a problem everyone's having, but over the past 2 years, 3 years, Yorktown has had a renaissance in interest. Part of that renaissance, and I'll address some of Dan's points, some of that renaissance changes plans. Those of you that have been following things for years, I know Susan could probably vouch for it, there are things that come into town that people think is a great idea, and then circumstances change, whether it's the economy, whether it's how the, what's happening with retail shopping versus the Amazon effect. When the owners of the Yorktown Green came in with a mixed-use plan, cost them a lot of money. Same thing with the hotel. Things changed. With the mixed-use plan at the Yorktown Green, they put in Uncle Giuseppe's and realized that, hey, you know what? We're getting a lot of people knocking on our door now interested in our retail. Why do I need to spend so many millions of dollars to do this big plan if I can actually now rent these spaces that for so long have been unrented and actually have income and increase the property value? So, that was a change that happened. With the hotel, I spoke with the owner and I said, what's happening with this? He said, honestly, the way the materials have gone up since I started to where it is now, I can't afford it anymore. So he is trying to apparently sell his plans, but I don't know where that's been. That was
And
early
with
in the
that,
year.
during COVID, a normal 2x4 was $2. It went up to $8 a 2x4. And I talked to him also, and he says the cost is astronomical, and that's what changed his mindset of not building it then and there. It just, COVID, the building material went through the roof, like 4 or 5 times what it used to be.
So there are circumstances that change. To say that people are trying to perpetrate a hoax on Yorktown because they come in with a plan, I think it's unfair. These people spent a lot of money, and it's a shame when you do, but anyone who's run a business, started a business, sometimes you come across this where you start something and it's not feasible, and you invest money in it, and it's money flushed down the toilet. And it's a shame, but that's unfortunately what happens. And I've sat here for 9 years, and you know what? I've seen a lot of those projects come around, unfortunately. But then I've seen some of them revive and come around again and have a new reiteration, maybe changes, and that's what you hope for. But it is, when you look at site plans, it is the right of the people to go before planning and request a site plan change. I wasn't aware, Jay, I know you texted me something and I was, or emailed me, and I was away at the time, so I hadn't even gotten a chance since back to look at that meeting. But I could have Adam address a little bit about Soundview when we're done, when I'm done. But, the subdividing, I don't think is really a change to plan. It's something to separate for a homeowner's agreement. I know that they want to have sole ownership of the house to protect it and to make sure that there's nothing there. Like I said, I didn't watch, so I'm just assuming on some things, but I'll have Adam speak about it a little bit. Larry, you'd mentioned that, the college effect, and you're right, but fortunately everything at Mercy, I hear, but one spot has been rented out. So they're doing very well with that space. A lot of it's become medical, which is great because we've heard comments about how we don't have enough medical services around. They put a really nice eye lab in there. I see my eye doctor there. So that's been great. And, once again, thinking outside of the box, reinventing, coming around, but we don't have the power to go into someone's property and say, this is what you have to do. So, we try to invite the people up. It's one of the things that our PR firm does. I was just at a meeting in White Plains with some people who do some development, and, there's some really great things that could come around, but you do have to work for it and hope that you could sell your community.
Just based on that, Mary Jane, I just want to say also, it was so wonderful to see Barnes and Nobles open up in Mount Kisco. I too remember my cousins lived in Putnam, so I used to come up to the JV Mall. There was like the Disney store. There were all these great food courts. I remember it super buzzing. And they also did have it was a food place next to the movie theater. It was a good spot as a kid. But I do see like bookstores are coming back finally, and I'm a big book buyer. But I'm just saying it's so nice to sit and be able to have a cup of coffee with somebody and then buy a book. So I'm hoping that Amazon effect and everything else brings back, because you lose community. Like there's something nice about going shopping and with family and friends. So. Mark, I'll have Diana speak a little bit about Sensory Garden, because I think she's addressed that to some of the people in your group already. The 485B, I did ask Gary, our assessor, to sit down with me. He was away, then I was away. We're now finally back. Actually, I'm supposed to be on jury duty, but I was one and done on it today, so it opens up my schedule a little bit, so I'm very happy about that. But the meeting schedule, just so you're aware, the meeting schedule is proposed by the clerk. I will say that Diana and I worked collaboratively with this. We've had a very good working relationship over the year, and there were some back and forth and some suggestions, and then it's up for the town board to vote on it. I know there's been mention on what it is. There have been meetings added into it as if needed. There were also some changes made, because we just found out yesterday about a special election on February 11th, which is, of course, one of our days. So, but we are definitely keeping the focus on it and making sure that everything is planned out. Plan your work, work your plan. Sarah, I'm just, please email me regarding the Dr. King event. And also, I'm not sure why you looked at me when you said there's some dull items around. We'll talk about that at a later date. Charlie, for Dan, we actually did talk about the ATV issue in Carmel in one of our meetings, where the person was playing chicken with someone. Oh, not that one. Okay, so then the other one I didn't even see, but. Charlie, for Lake Osceola and the issues there, first I want to make sure the record's straight. Michael Grace is not a developer. He's an attorney for Creative Living. Creative Living has come with a project that could add sewering. There have been multiple reports over the decades about how sewering is needed in that area. As for any type of fecal matter, and I would still like to see all the tests, what happens is septic tanks are the enemy of the ecology. They fail. When something floods out, the product in could rise to the top and escape. We do not have the authority over septics. That's actually Westchester County Board of Health. So we're sort of hamstrung. I can't go onto your property and say, you need to do something about this. I could report something to the Board of Health, but then I can't even legally, and from my understanding, go in and do a dye test to see if there's anything leaking on your property. So it's very complex on that. I think that you will unfortunately find that in a lot of areas there's different type of fecal matter, whether it's human or animal, that goes through our water system, but that's why the water goes through purification. And the chlorination process in our water treatment plants. So it's an important aspect. It's not as awful as it sounds, although it is pretty awful. But it's not like people are swimming in a toilet full of feces.
But also, Charlie, Dwayne brought it up last meeting. We don't have, correct me if I'm wrong, but the association over there, which is now defunct, owns the lake. We can't go on that.
We don't own the lake.
What?
They own parts of the lake, and people are.
My point is, we can't go out there and do it. It's not the town's property. So I'm just want to reiterate it because Dwayne brought it up last meeting also. That's all.
Yeah. I know it's private property, but my thing is. But we could, Charlie. I'm sorry. Yeah, we could have a conversation offline. I know what you're saying. It's bothersome.
and it's unfortunate. But once again, this is the advantage of sewering. And you're right, it's expensive. But part of the last time an area over there was sewered, it was Val Santucci did a sewer extension on the other side by Gomer and Curry, and what they did was they put aside a specific amount per household that were affected for people to hook into it. So there are ways to mitigate the costs. And that is something that if this other project were to get approved, come to fruition, and be able to bring sewer, that's something that we've already brought up in these meetings, saying there has to be some way to make this achievable. Otherwise, like you said, it's garbage. It's nothing.
And
So-
Charlie, I kind of understand what you're saying. We have a better chance, and I say this with our attorney, in my municipal hat, that someone with a kind heart takes his vacuum truck and starts trudging it and cleaning it, than us as town officials and all the laws and all these municipality laws. I feel like I'm sure if a contractor went in there and started pumping it out and getting rid of all the trudging underneath and got rid of the sand and dropped it, he might have to ask for forgiveness. He might get a couple of fines. But if we did anything, the violations, what I'm finding is it's almost harder from this side. But I'm just telling you, just because I know you, that yeah, I hear what you're saying.
And one more thing before I pass
Don't
it.
worry, I'm not going to do that, Adam.
One more thing before I pass it over to Adam to talk a little bit about the Soundview. Mr. Kratzoff, what New York State does with its property is outside of our control. I know he wants to, I guess, now do something in Trump Park. It's a state park. We have literally zero say in that. We also are not, I think it would be a violation of the public trust for us to back a public business, which seems to be, to me, what you're asking for. And, we really can't do that, unfortunately. And if you wanted to address New York State about the use of the park, you're more than welcome to. They don't even listen to us when we say we would like them to pay taxes on the state parks that are in our town, even though they don't, but they pay taxes to other municipalities that have state parks. So
I'm also having a problem in that one. There's a few of our constituents have reached out because of trees that have fallen, and I've been trying to email them to come in because we're not allowed to touch any of their stuff, and they won't even call for that, and they're at the back of the townhouses and whatnot. So yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, Adam.
Before you ask Adam to comment, I'd like to say something on the easement issue.
No, I'd prefer Adam to address my questions first.
Well, I'd like to say that I brought it up during an executive session. I'd like to explain that.
It's executive session. No.
No, I'd just like to advise the people that I asked for legal advice during the executive session on the easement issue. One of the specific questions was, does the town board have to authorize the supervisor to sign the easements? That was an issue that I specifically asked about because in 2022, just doing a search through town minutes, the town accepted a conservation easement for the Atlantic Appliance, which is building next to the post office, and the town board approved it. And there's a long history of other different types of easements that the town board has voted on, authorizing the supervisor to sign. So that's why in legal advice, and I asked Adam to research that and give us an answer to that.
I would have had him explain the process from upstairs,
Yeah.
but since you did, but you really should not talk about what we said in executive session.
I'm just saying I raised the issue, and I think that is legitimate to
Adam,
advise the public about that.
Have you spoken to Mr. Chen at all about the meeting? That the last.
No, but I mean, I can address the issues.
Sure.
So there are various times where the town board might authorize the execution of easements, right? In this case, and routinely we don't get town board authorization for easements, for utility easements, for things like this, because they are oftentimes authorized or required under separate approvals. Like in this case, they were conditioned. There were conditions of the approvals they got for the planning board. We reviewed them with the relevant departments. and they're executed all the time. One
Can-
of the easements, though, was in fact authorized by the town board, the restrictive covenant agreement. And the reason for that is because that wasn't a component of the site plan approval. That was a separate agreement that the town board negotiated with the developer. So there was a separate resolution prepared and authorized and passed. To the extent there's really a concern, you could just make a motion right now, and the board can vote on it, authorizing the execution of the easements, the open space and utility easements, in a form approved by the town attorney, and that's it.
All right. Well, woman,
Oh,
God bless you.
all right. I still would like to know you said that the town routinely, town board doesn't have to approve utility easements. If you go through the town minutes, you'll see multiple times where the planning board approved projects, and then there are easements that the town board approved. There are conservation easements. There was one about a right-of-way easement, a parking easement. There are multiple easements. So I would like some clarification in town law as to what the supervisor is authorized to sign on his own. For example, we have it in one of our organizational resolutions, which is a routine thing that we do every year. The supervisor can sign certain contracts under a certain dollar amount. Okay, that's a routine thing because we want government to function efficiently. But this question about signing easements that the town board has not seen, okay, and I have multiple questions about the content of the two easements, the utility easement and the open space easement, which don't have to discuss right now, okay? And these will be before the planning board. The planning board will have to look at the easements. And the unicorn attorney was frankly very confusing to anybody who watched that meeting because he couldn't even say which easements he was talking about. He talked about a cross easement between the properties because they're going to subdivide the property between the rental properties and the condominium properties. There are questions about the public access to this pond and the trail. So I have two basic questions. One is the authority, and this is a fundamental question on how this government functions, is at what point and for what issues does the town board have to authorize the supervisor to take certain action? And this, I'd like to know the sections in what the appropriate town laws. I did some limited research, but I could not find that. And then the second question is, if the town board does have to approve them, then I'd like to see the content of the easements and have a discussion about the content of the easements.
I think I've answered the question, but you have the easements, you've seen the content of them.
Well,
as
and I'm not satisfied with some of them.
Like I said,
Yeah.
if the concern is whether they're authorized or not, the board has the language. You can take a vote right now and authorize it.
I don't know that the other members of the board have seen the easements because I had to do multiple emails to even get copies of them, and I think I just got them on Monday. And I think the planning board should weigh in on this because one of the easements involves the public, and the rec commission should also have a chance to look at it because this was kind of unique in terms of
Susan?
approval, that we're having private land, but we're having public access to private land.
Susan, we will go for a vote next week. Everything will get out. Patrick can't vote tonight.
I can't vote.
He has to recuse.
I have to recuse myself from that project.
All right, but
So-
I think we first need
We'll have a
the
vote
legal answer about whether the town board is authorized.
He'll have that answer for us
All right.
by the end of the week.
And I think we should wait until the planning board reviews this. Okay, thank you.
I think the planning board has reviewed.
No, they have
easements.
not. They
No,
hadn't even seen the easements.
Okay. All right, I was under the impression that they were
No,
part of the
they hadn't
original
seen the
project.
easements.
These easements were all part of the original approvals? No?
No.
Okay,
They're requirements of the original approvals.
they are.
Yes, of course. they are.
Okay,
But the
That's
planning
fine.
board has not. The planning board has not seen them.
okay, we'll get that taken care of. All right, I think I covered everything I needed to. Anything else?
I have some issues. Just going back to Underhill Farms, 2 points. Jay, site plans do get changed over time. and that's a legitimate function. And typically, the developer has to come back to the planning board to get approvals. Sometimes, depending upon the extent of the amendments, they are subject to a public hearing. Sometimes the planning board says, no, we don't need a public hearing, we'll just do this on their own. And that could be an issue, but plans do change. Dan, you raised something on Underhill, multiple issues, but one I'd like to comment on was the road improvements for 118, the intersection. And this is one of my unfinished business issues that I raised earlier. If you go back, I think it was May or June, the town board passed a resolution about who was going to pay for those improvements. And the resolution said, again, I don't have the numbers with me, but roughly Unicorn was going to pay between $500,000 and $600,000 for the improvements, and the town was going to pay the rest of the money. Okay, and they estimated what that rest of the money would be, and I think the town would be like 500 to get to 600,000. Well, the bids came in on December 4th. The lowest bid was $1.8 million, which means the town, because the town capped, the resolution capped Soundview's contribution, and all of us are going to pick up the rest.
Well, Susan, Susan, you're speaking out of turn. Just so you know, because you asked why you wanted us to vote on the bid, and I'm not approving that bid.
Well,
it's going to go out for rebid. Okay. That's why it's not on. I'm not accepting that. And there's things that were added by DOT that honestly do not need to be there, and it'll be addressed and it'll be rebid. So please don't say to the taxpayers you're going to be on the line for another $600,000 because it's not happening.
Well, I'm glad to hear that
okay,
it's going to be.
Well, this is something you could have asked me.
Okay.
But that's why it's not out. That's why we're not. That's not why we are not approving the bid or assigning it out. It'll be rebid. It'll be looked at. But it's very, very disingenuous to just say, "Oh, you're going to be paying that money." That's totally wrong.
But
Susan.
I think you could have said sent an email to all town board members and say, "Look, I got these prices and they're way too high, and we're going to be rebid." Which I was never told that was your intention.
I was waiting to talk.
But then you assumed his intention was.
No, I had no idea what
you did assume, but I was waiting to talk to Dr. Phil, and I have Dan also talking to him because they're the ones who did the initial bid, and honestly I want to know where this came out wrong. I've already seen some of the things myself. I was able to look at from what we agreed upon to what was put in, but I want the explanations because we had two different traffic people look at it, theirs and ours.
Look at the bids.
Look at the bids and give the estimate on what they thought it would be.
Not the specs.
Right. Well, the specs got changed a little bit by DOT, but it shouldn't have been that big of a difference. But we will. It'll all be addressed, and I'm not approving a $1.8 million bid. I don't think anyone on this board is.
I'm glad
and
to
I
hear
apologize that I went on vacation after the bids came, and it sort of slipped, but that's why it's not there.
Okay.
I didn't get a chance to answer you.
As a board member, I wasn't told that I was waiting for the board to work on that. Several comments about 485B, commercial development, and all of the associated problems. Clearly, and I think it was you, Mark, who said that the town board said it was going to have a meeting. Somebody said the town board was going to have a meeting about this. I think this is a board, somebody's.
Okay, Susan.
We need a town board discussion. We need the numbers from the assessor's office or anybody else who wants to put together the numbers. It's fairly easy, very cut and dry to put the numbers together about what the impact will be. And I think one of the issues is it would appear that there's a decrease in the need for new commercial development. So we're dealing with vacant land, but we're also doing with upgrading existing facilities, like the Triangle Center. If the Triangle Center wants to rent its space, it has to upgrade, it has to modernize, otherwise they're going to be vacant. So whether we give an incentive or not, they have almost no other choice, but if they want to rent their space, they've got to improve their facility. So I think this is something that the town board should work on directly. I don't think we have to go through another volunteer panel. That will just delay the issue. So that's something that we need to deal with. On the sensory garden, I know you said Diana can talk about this, but I can say that I was at the Rec Commission meeting last week. They are very concerned about the lack of progress on this project. I think, and we have the chairman here, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Jim Martirano, at the town board's suggestion, I think it was your suggestion, Supervisor, a subcommittee has been formed to look into this whole issue and get the project moving. Jim Martirano said that that group was going to meet in January, and he was going to direct that committee to come up with a specific plan, with a budget, with a timetable, and then report to the commission by February and come back to the town board, because the town board has to make the decision, because this is a monetary thing. So if Jim gives that direction and that committee then produces a report, said this is what we want to do, because there are multiple issues, and I won't go into the multiple issues, around it now. But that's where that is, so hopefully we'll get some resolution one way or the other on that. Mark, you said that we should, in terms of the need for the fourth meeting, identify some topics. Here's a quick list. The 3 moratoriums that are ending April 1st. The solar law, we went through 2 moratoriums on that one. The smoking and vape law, the battery storage law. 3 issues that will expire by April 1st, okay? According to the town schedule, we're not going to have this possible extra meeting, if needed, until the end of April. So we'll have to deal with that. And the town board has not discussed the meat and potatoes of what has to go into these new laws. And that needs a discussion first before the board tells the attorney what to write down in terms of drafting a local law. The attorney can't draft something if he doesn't know what the board wants. We have 2 RFPs, requests for proposals, that are outstanding. The field home, which we have a deadline on that, if we're going to accept the property from Toll Brothers. If we miss the deadline, we could lose many hundreds of thousands of dollars in potential revenue. We also have been talking, and there have been lots of talk about doing an RFP for solar issues on town property. We haven't done anything about that. And I talked about the RFP. The recreation law, the recreation fee law, we've known for more than a year, going back to when the Soundview project was discussed and the whole issue of how the rec fee gets paid. That needs to be discussed, and I recently sent the board a lengthy memo about that. These are some of the issues between now and April 1st need to be addressed, and I think that warrants a 4th meeting now and not waiting until the end of April, where the calendar says if needed. And there could be multiple other issues that will come up that I don't even know about. So I think that answers your question on that one. Charlie, on the sewer issue, the fecal issue is one point, and I think Ed addressed that. But to your point about the cost, okay, and that's why, as part of any discussion about moving forward on extending the overlay district to include that property, there has to be a very comprehensive discussion with all of those properties along East Main Street, whether at X price they will be interested in hooking up to the sewers. Even if the developer puts the trunk line in, and if he gives them Y dollars. If it's going to cost Z dollars, well, Y dollars, and they'll still say no, because having worked with homeowners on sewer issues for more years than I want to remember, cost is a deciding factor. Yes, I want sewers. Oh, that's what it's going to cost? Sorry, I don't really need sewers. And so I think before anything goes forward on extending the overlay, because that's the only reason, the rationale for extending the overlay, is to get that sewer line. But a sewer line with nobody hooking up isn't going to do any good. So I think that's part and parcel of the information. And I don't know if any outreach has been done on all of the property owners along East Main Street on the north and south side. Just because somebody says 1 or 2 property owners want it is not sufficient. I think that's all I had to say.
Okay. Well, I will say that trying to replace your septic on a lot that's not feasible to put a large enough tank on anymore because they were bungalows back in the day and have been expanded to houses is quite the incentive because your property is going to be worth what's coming out of the ground.
Nobody wanted sewers more than I did.
Right.
And I know what it's like to take the laundry out, to not use a dishwasher, to not flush the toilet, to take multiple baths, for children in one water. So I know that if you can't fix your septic because of the limitations, that there are other things that you have to do if you don't want it to seep up.
Yep.
But cost is the issue. Okay,
Absolutely.
and cost is the issue.
And
you can't
that's
force somebody.
But as I said, that's something, as I mentioned before, that we spoke about at the last meeting, that it has to be addressed. There has to be the thing. And they could do a sewer survey, they could do all that, and it'll take care of the stuff coming in from Yorktown. We won't be able to do the sewer survey in Putt Valley and Mayapack, where stuff is still coming down the hills, but that's a whole nother story. So we could worry about what's inside our sphere of influence, which is that corridor, and we will.
Well, we
will
need
make
the
sure-
information,
Yeah, of course.
because
Dan-
the sewer
Dan is
issue is
meeting-
part and
Dan-
parcel. It's the only rationale for extending it into the overlay district is
Dan
the
is
sewer
supposed to
line.
be meeting with Rich Williams there before the next meeting that they're on. So hopefully they'll have some answers on some of those costs, and then how to address the people in the area.
And reaching out to the people and
How to address the people in the area.
before any vote is taken to extend the sewer district. You've got to get the sentiment from all of the property owners.
Yep.
I think we're all in agreement on that.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Diana, do you want to speak a little bit about the sensory garden and the benches?
No, I'll discuss that with Mr. Lieberman offline.
Okay. Very good. So let's move on at this point. Resolutions. Wow, Charlie. You like getting out of these meetings now that you're not running them, huh? There you go. Have a wonderful evening. All right, resolutions from the Office of the Town Clerk. Renew the AAA Carting and Rubbish Removal Inc. commercial garbage licensing for 2025. Renew the Sani Pro Disposal Service Corp. DBA Suburban Carting Company commercial garbage license for 2025. From the Office of the Personnel Manager, accept the retirement letter received from Thomas Galello from the John C. Hart Memorial Library, effective March 28th, 25. I'm sure I'll see you before then, Tom, but enjoy your retirement, well-deserved, and you've been a wonderful asset to the town. Appoint Scott Ferraria to the position of Heavy Motor Equipment in the Parks Department. Congratulations on that promotion, Scott. Grant employee 301-205 unpaid leave of absence until July 12th, 2025. Authorize the following employees to carry over or buy back additional unused vacation leave as enumerated below. That was management. And then also there is following employees requested to receive permission from their applicable department heads to carry accrued 2024 vacation time for use in 2025 and have previously received town board approval, but due to unforeseen work schedule, they will need to carry over additional time as enumerated below. From the Highway Department, authorize the release of a tie-into town drainage permit 23005 in the amount of $1,000 to Ulcie Palumbi, 319 Columbine Court, Yorktown Heights, New York. From the Mohegan Lake Improvement District, award the request for proposal for Lake Mohegan aquatic pesticide treatments to Stahl Holding LLC in an amount not to exceed $58,000. That is for the chemical treatment for the blue-green algae. From the Planning Department, correct a resolution originally passed October 22nd, 2024, authorize Gregory Dietrich Preservation Consulting to assist the town in the adoptive reuse process for the Field Home Mansion. The original resolution, it was for $2,400, but it was supposed to be for $2,800, so there's a correction to that.
Could you give us an update on what the status is on the
RFP?
On the RFP on this one, and why there's been a delay?
Yes, the RFP was a little confusing, contradicting, and would have broken the process up into two different submittals. I have asked John Tegeter to revisit it based on, I believe it was a town of Warwick, where we have one that's a little more detailed for what we're looking for, but not overly detailed. I don't think you get too much, but it would cut the process into one, which by taking the extra couple of weeks to get it right would actually save about a month's worth of time. And he's going to clean up some of the language that I thought was repetitious, and some of the language that was a little contradicting to itself.
Is he going to still require the submitters to have all that detailed financial information on a very speculative?
We were discussing some of the things that may be a little too involved, so we'll see, and we'll make sure he has tried to commit to having that to me by the end of the week, so we could put that out for everyone to look at and have some comments.
Will you get that so that we can decide on and discuss it next week?
That's the plan.
Thank you.
From the police department, authorize the purchase of a new ALPR ready trailer, speed alert 24 radar message sign, base unit, and equipment, and to authorize the comptroller to process the following budget transfer in the amount not to exceed $30,158 for the police department from general fund balance to police equipment. Authorize the supervisor to execute all documents necessary to procure a community resiliency, economic sustainability, and technology program, or CREST grant, in the amount of $120,000 for the purchase of 3 motorcycles and related equipment, and authorize the comptroller to process the budget transfer as below for general fund of $120,000 and vehicles of $120,000.
Can I ask on that one, is that the 120, is that the reimbursement? Is it 100% grant, or is there a match?
I believe it's 100% from Pete Harkin's
Press
office.
grants would be reimbursable to the town.
Right.
That's 100%. And were there any other options for this CREST grant?
No, it was a police
It's a police
specific
It was
police
a police
CREST
grant.
grant.
How many motorcycles do
3.
we have now?
Well, we're replacing and selling 2, holding 1. I'm not sure of the exact number, but they're outdated and unsafe at this point. We need the proper equipment for our officers. From Refuse and Recycling Department, Central Garage, approve the following vehicle to be deemed obsolete and be either scrapped at Brookfield Metal or sold at auction for Absolute Auction and Realty, Inc. It's a 2010 Ford Crown Victoria. Approve the Refuse and Recycling Department to purchase 2 2025 Kenworth T480 tandem axle garbage trucks at a price of $294,958 per truck. These are for the bulk trash and other things that our refuse and recycling do. I think one of the trucks being retired is from like 2020. 2000. Sorry. So they're pretty old and sort of falling apart there. From the supervisor's office, maybe we need to pull this one. Reappoint Matthew Talbert as a member of the Parks and Recreation Commission for a 7-year term expiring on December 31st, 2031. Organizational resolutions, authorize and direct the supervisor to pay regular bi-weekly salaries of all elected and appointed town officials. Approve the mileage rate of 70 cents per mile for town officials and employees who use their own vehicles in performance of official duties. Direct the supervisor to submit the fiscal report to the state comptroller and town clerk within 120 days after the close of the fiscal year. Authorize the town comptroller to make refunds for correction of error up to a maximum of $2,500. Authorize the supervisor to make application to the New York State Division of Youth for state aid for a recreation and youth service grant. Authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement with Norwest. Authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement with the sports clubs. Just so you know, Norwest works with people with disabilities in our community. For those of you that don't know them, they take them on trips. They offer different activities and do a lot with the Special Olympics as well. Designate delegates to the New York State Association of Towns meeting. Designate depositories for the town of Yorktown.
Congratulations, Patrick Murphy.
Yes. J.P. Morgan Chase, Flagstar Private Bank, TD Bank North America, the Bank of New York Mellon, and New York Class. And be it further resolved that Edward Lachman, Supervisor of the Town of Yorktown, is authorized pursuant to Town Law, Section 29-2, to act on behalf of the Town of Yorktown with said banks. The following banks are designated depositories for the following officers of the Town of Yorktown. J.P. Morgan Chase, Yorktown Heights, New York, for Justice Raniolo account, Justice Cohen Pearson account, and the joint bail account, Justice Cohen Pearson and Justice Raniolo. Authorize blanket authorization for supervisors to sign contracts up to the amount of $12,500, not to exceed $50,000 in a calendar year. Authorize the superintendent of highways to purchase equipment without prior approval in an amount not to exceed $7,000. Designate the Journal News and the Yorktown News as the official newspapers of the town. And why don't I leave this other one on in case, Susan, you don't want to vote on that one. Can I have
Well,
a
does the board want to consider adding the fourth work session at this point?
I think they've all spoken on it, but we could ask again.
All right, then take it out so I can vote against it.
Okay. Can I have a motion on the others?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then designate the 2025 meeting dates on the town board as enumerated. Further resolved that the town board will meet with its department heads to review their budgets on November 12th and November 13th. Be it further resolved, town board will hold its regular budget hearing at 6:30 p.m. on December 2nd, 2025. Be it further resolved, the town of Yorktown will hold its annual records management inventory on February 5th and February 6th. And
Write
be
in the
it
calendar.
further resolved, the special meetings shall be called and held in conformance with Section 62 of the Town Law and Article 7 of the Public Officers Law. Motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed. Can I just add something here? It's been passed. I've noticed since I've been attending, since I've been on the board, that the full, and as you know, I've been a long proponent of open meetings, and I've questioned some of the content of the executive sessions without necessarily knowing specifics, but just by inference. My experience over 6 months has been that sometimes the topics discussed are very legitimate closed session topics like personnel. We had a lot of personnel issues that we discussed tonight. But there are also times when the topic veers off into something else. We discussed some of the items on the agenda tonight, for example, which was strictly not a closed session topic. So I'd like to make a suggestion that worked many years ago, and it was probably when Michael Grace was supervisor, although I don't remember, but when I was not on the board, where people were able to come up at that 6:30 time, between 6:30 and 7:30, if they wanted to, and they were in the supervisor's outer office, okay? And when the town board discussed legitimate executive session issues, the door was closed. Sometimes they were told to go out into the lobby, so you couldn't even hear anything, which was proper.
I wasn't on the board then.
No, this goes back many years, and I'm talking,
meant 'cause I'm so-
I'm talking from experience.
No, I meant because I'm so loud.
Oh.
You can hear me
We would have had to ask her to ask people to go to Uncle Giuseppe's.
because I'm so loud.
But there are topics, and I think it would give the town board more flexibility to talk about issues. For example, Ed, you wanted to talk about certain issues on the agenda tonight. Just
Actually, Susan, I did not. I just stated and I'll share this because it's not a problem. I said that Ken would not be able to make it today. If anyone had any questions, let me know, because you
Ken
can call
Belfort.
him. Ken would normally be here for his thing. And then I think I explained why something wasn't here, just because you tell people, hey, I had no idea, but I
Yeah.
want to make sure you're aware of it.
I raised
But that's not-
raised questions about the Dietrich resolution and why it had to be rescinded, not rescinded, but modified. And you explained the $400 difference, and then you explained the additional changes that John
you
wanted
asked,
to
yes.
make.
So you're saying you
because
violated the-
because I asked. Okay, those should have been in an open session. So I think. And sometimes you've seen us, some of us, we've come down early because there just aren't enough issues to discuss for an hour. So I just think for more flexibility, I'd like the board to possibly consider that. There are certain topics that absolutely should be discussed in closed session. No question about that. And I have no issue with that. But other times, not. So the public, if anybody wants to come, maybe not nobody wants to come, but back in those days, there used to be a group of people who used to come and listen. And again, walked outside into the lobby far away. So I just raised those issues.
Can I ask a question then?
Yeah.
Did you feel it was inappropriate to ask about those questions in closed session?
I wasn't going to make a big issue because they weren't substantive issues, but I'm just saying the public might have wanted to know that. If somebody wanted to, was interested
And
enough.
then you said, I'd like to repeat this downstairs, and I said, you're more than welcome to, even though he's got, and we did. And those,
absolutely.
So, but once again, I feel it sounds a little disingenuous, because you're implying that there was a violation of open meetings, which is not. We're not taking any votes. If there's a question about something, it could be answered, because some of the people don't have the experience you have. And even you had something you had a question on, which is great, but that's not a violation of open meetings.
I didn't say, I did not.
It was implied.
I didn't say that. The
I also heard she invited
issue
them
was,
up.
I think there would be more flexibility in terms of what the board can discuss informally, okay, which the public would, if they wanted to, and it might be that nobody wants to come.
But that's what courtesy of the floor is for.
No, actually.
No,
There's a distinct difference, but Susan, the problem is, say Jay wants to come up, but Dan doesn't. Now, is it fair for Dan if I had that discussion upstairs and don't have it down here?
Because that would be up to Dan
Well,
to want to be there. I just say this, and again, it's from experience over watching many, many boards. And before you adjourn the meeting, I'd like to bring up one other issue.
Sure, Susan.
I would like to address the board. I think the board members are aware of, Pat, you may not be aware, but it came up at a rec commission meeting last week, and I did send both the town board and the planning board a memo on this. What is happening at Fieldstone Manor, where there is town-owned land, and there's no question that it's town-owned land. It's not parkland, but it's town-owned land. But there are cars and trucks being parked on that land. And I'd like to just know whether there's been an agreement to allow that parking to take place there. If so, is there any fee being charged? And if it's not allowed, then it's a violation of something. It shouldn't be done. I'd like to know what's being done about that.
So I've asked our attorney to look into it. There are two issues there. I did ask him to right away start an indemnification agreement regardless. But there's really a question as to if it was properly dedicated, because the deed apparently said to be dedicated. The deal was not done. The paperwork was put in by Al Capolini's widow. So I've asked Adam to look into the fact, do we do an indemnification, or do we redeed the land back until it's a proper time for us to take it? Because there's still an active construction site there. I don't know why
It's not finished.
they would take land out of the usage for their machinery to go back and forth through because it's town property. It shouldn't have been. It should eventually be dedicated to parkland, not to the town. So there are a whole bunch of issues that Adam's trying to look into. I know our clerk has been helping out.
It would still be dedicated to the town, and town board would have to accept that, which they have not done as far as I can see in the resolutions so far. So
But that's
it's
the
still
town
being
board.
looked into, and I'd be more than happy to talk to the town attorney about that.
And then I think related to this is the issue of that land, it's a little over 8 acres, was by its resolution in 2016. The developer was supposed to put in three courts, tennis or pickleball, I'm not sure, and a basketball court and associated parking. It's not stated in the approval resolution at what point the developer has to make those improvements. Now,
My understanding with planning is it must be done by the time of subdivision, and it's not saying that, and so it doesn't have to be done right away. It has to be done by the time the subdivision is complete.
well, then I would ask for a report from the building inspector, because I know it looks like the houses are up. Have COs been issued for any of the houses?
Okay, well, that's a separate issue. I think.
No, it's not a separate issue.
Let's
because-
just go back to where the trucks are.
The site plan issue is up to the planning board, not the town board. As a planning board issue. So they would have to deal with that issue.
Well, then, is the plan, yes, I know there's a section in the town code that says the planning board or the planning director can take issue if a subdivision or site plan is not being, if the conditions are not being honored. So I'm asking, since this would relate to, he would probably ask either the building inspector or the town engineer to deal with this, to look into whether, at what point the developer has to start making those recreation facilities. Also, there is an ongoing violation dealing with the apartments in the house, which I have alerted the town board to many times.
I believe the last email from the building inspector says there are no violations. But that's what I saw in a reply to you. So, implying again, but Susan, as for the property, you're right, but it's a planning board issue. And I actually personally, especially after being at the last Parks and Rec meeting, hope that the planning board will make time for the Parks and Rec committee, because I heard quite a few members saying, including our superintendent of parks, saying we don't need more pocket parks. We'd rather them do work in our parks, because today 2 tennis courts, 3 tennis courts, and some basketball courts sound great, until we're spending in 10 years $700,000-800,000 to refurbish all of these because we're on the hook for them.
That's another meeting, because that's a separate meeting if he wants to give a fee instead, if the developer wants to do a fee instead of the parks. I don't know what was promised, but I just want to go back to the town lot, that it's deemed the town, because that's obviously for here. I think that moving on the indemnification from environmental on, just making sure that it's been well kept, is probably the first start.
Yeah.
Above all, because I do think probably a lot of things from Al's office got filed, even though they're supposed to be filed later on or however it happened. But I do want to protect the town so that there isn't anything with the trucks or any liability or anything for that as
Agreed.
well.
Well, but if the deed issue gets resolved, then we don't need a town indemnification.
I get it, but it's still sitting there.
Yes, well, these are issues that the town attorney should be clarified on that. But to go back to the apartments in the mansion, they were not non-conforming uses, because I can tell you there's nothing in the planning board minutes of the multiple meetings for that subdivision and the decision both of the town board during using flexibility and of the planning board there was no recognition that they were non-conforming uses. So the memo from the code inspector's office is incorrect, and that's not a justification. That's not a justification for not doing anything to correct this violation notice. Plus the fact that 2 of the units are supposed to be affordable, and they're not.
I'll sit down with John again and go through the
We
paperwork.
need compliance. Otherwise, why have codes which are not enforced?
No, agreed. All right, motion to adjourn?
It says the whole time.
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yorktown, good
Yorktown.
night. Thank you so much.
Happy New Year.